Right now, many lawful permanent residents across the United States are feeling uneasy about upcoming international travel, and it's understandable why. Changes in immigration enforcement priorities and border procedures have created uncertainty, especially for green card holders who are used to relatively smooth re-entry into the country. If you or someone close to you holds a green card and is planning to travel abroad in the coming weeks or months, this is a good time to slow down, get informed, and make sure you understand how things may feel different at the airport. This isn't about panic or alarm. It's about awareness, preparation, and protecting the life you've worked so hard to build. Why January has people paying attention? January 20th has become a focal point because it coincides with new executive actions and updated enforcement guidance related to immigration. While lawful permanent residency remains a legally protected status, how that status is reviewed at ports of entry can evolve based on policy priorities. These changes don't mean that green card holders are suddenly unwelcome or automatically at risk, but they do mean that border officers may take a closer look at certain cases. For people who haven't thought much about travel risks in years, this shift can feel unsettling, especially when plans are already booked and families are counting on smooth returns home. Understanding the bigger picture. For decades, many green card holders experienced international travel as relatively straightforward. You left the country, came back, showed your documents, answered a few questions, and went on with your life. That experience helped create a sense of stability and trust in the system, and for good reason. Permanent residency is meant to provide long-term security. What's changing now is not the existence of that status, but the level of scrutiny that may be applied in certain situations. The government's broader immigration posture has placed renewed emphasis on enforcement consistency, which affects how officers assess residency ties at the border. Permanent residency is still real, but it has conditions. It's important to say this clearly. Having a green card still means you are a lawful permanent resident of the United States. That hasn't changed. What sometimes gets lost, however, is that permanent residency has always come with expectations. The law assumes that the United States is your primary home, not just a place you visit occasionally. Most people meet that standard easily without thinking about it, but when travel patterns or personal circumstances become more complex, those expectations can come into sharper focus during re-entry. What border officers are evaluating. When a green card holder arrives at a U.S. port of entry, Customs and Border Protection officers are responsible for determining admissibility. In most cases, this process is routine. However, officers are trained to look at the total picture of a person's life, especially if something raises questions. This can include how long you were abroad, how often you travel, where you work, where you live, and whether your actions match your stated intention to permanently reside in the United States. These evaluations are not new, but officers may now be more consistent or thorough in applying them. The concept of residency explained simply. One term that comes up often in immigration discussions is abandonment of residence. This doesn't mean that taking a vacation or visiting family abroad puts your green card at risk. Abandonment refers to situations where a person's behavior suggests that the United States is no longer their main home. Factors can include long or repeated absences, working or living abroad indefinitely, or failing to maintain basic ties such as housing, employment, or tax filing in the U.S. The key element is intent, and intent is inferred from actions over time rather than a single trip. Travel length still matters. Time spent outside the United States has always been relevant, and it continues to be one of the most important considerations. Trips under 6 months are generally considered low risk for most permanent residents. Absences longer than 6 months can lead to additional questions, and absences of a year or more typically require advanced planning, such as obtaining a re-entry permit. What may feel new to some travelers is that officers can also look at travel patterns over several years, not just one trip, to understand how and where a person actually lives. Patterns can speak louder than single trips. Even if each individual trip is relatively short, frequent travel that keeps you outside the United States more than inside it can raise questions. For example, someone who spends most of the year abroad for work or personal reasons may be asked to explain how the U.S. remains their primary residence. This doesn't mean such situations are automatically disqualifying, but they do require clear explanations and supporting evidence. Understanding how your travel history might look to someone reviewing it for the first time can help you prepare calmly and confidently. Ties to the United States are key. One of the most reassuring things for permanent residents is that maintaining clear ties to the United States goes a long way. Employment with a U.S. company, a home or lease, family members living here, active bank accounts, and consistent tax filings all demonstrate that the U.S. is your base. These are the ordinary elements of everyday life that most residents already have. When questions arise at the border, officers are often looking for these signs of continuity and commitment rather than perfection. Electronic devices and privacy reality. Many travelers are surprised to learn that border searches operate under different legal standards than searches within the country. Customs officers do have authority to inspect electronic devices, though not every traveler is searched, and most are not. When searches do occur, officers are generally looking for inconsistencies between what a person says and what their records suggest. This doesn't mean you need to fear your phone, but it does mean being honest and consistent matters. Casual messages or posts that contradict your stated plans can sometimes complicate conversations unnecessarily. Consistency is more important than caution. Rather than trying to hide or overthink your digital footprint, the most practical approach is consistency. If your life genuinely centers in the United States, that reality usually comes through naturally. Problems tend to arise when someone says one thing but appears to be living another way. Being straightforward about your work, travel, and intentions without volunteering unnecessary information helps keep interactions smooth and professional. Border inspections are not interrogations. They are assessments based on available information. Documentation is your safety net. While a green card remains the primary document for re-entry, carrying supporting paperwork can provide peace of mind, especially if your situation is not entirely straightforward. This might include recent tax returns, proof of employment, evidence of a U.S. address, or documentation explaining extended travel. You may never need to show these documents, but having them available can make a significant difference if questions arise. Think of them as reassurance rather than anticipation of trouble. Special situations deserve extra preparation. Certain circumstances deserve particular attention. If you've spent extended time abroad due to family illness, education, or overseas assignments, written documentation helps clarify that your absence had a defined purpose and end. Conditional permanent residents, such as those with marriage-based green cards, should ensure they are complying with all requirements and timelines. None of these situations are unusual, but they benefit from careful planning before international travel. Green card expiration versus status. 1. Common misunderstanding involves expiration dates. When a green card expires, your permanent resident status does not automatically end, but traveling with an expired card can cause serious complications. Airlines may refuse boarding, and border processing can become more complex. Renewing your green card well before travel is one of the simplest and most effective ways to avoid unnecessary stress. Keeping your documents current signals responsibility and attention to detail. What happens during secondary inspection? If an officer needs more information, you may be directed to secondary inspection. While this sounds intimidating, it is a standard procedure and does not mean you've done something wrong. Secondary inspection allows officers time to review records, ask follow-up questions, and ensure everything is in order. Most people are admitted without issue after this process. Staying calm, polite, and clear during these interactions helps them move efficiently. Decisions and your rights. In rare cases, an officer may raise serious concerns about residency. If this happens, you have rights, including the ability to request review by an immigration judge rather than making immediate decisions under pressure. However, resolving issues after travel is far more difficult than preventing them. This is why preparation, documentation, and thoughtful travel planning are so important. Being proactive reduces the likelihood of difficult situations altogether. Citizenship as a long-term consideration. Many permanent residents are now reconsidering whether U.S. citizenship might be right for them. Citizenship provides the strongest form of security, including the absolute right to enter the country. For those who are eligible and comfortable with the commitment, naturalization can bring peace of mind in uncertain policy climates. That said, citizenship is a personal decision involving family, identity, and sometimes dual nationality considerations. It's a choice worth exploring thoughtfully, not fearfully. For those not ready or eligible. Not everyone can or wants to become a citizen right now, and that's okay. Permanent residency remains a valid and respected status. The key is understanding how to protect it by living in alignment with its expectations. This includes maintaining U.S. ties, filing taxes correctly, keeping documents updated, and being mindful about extended travel. These steps are not new rules. They are simply becoming more visible and important. A calm and practical bottom line. The most important takeaway is this: green card holders do not need to panic, cancel all travel, or fear every interaction at the border. What's needed is awareness. Understand how the system works, recognize how your travel history might appear, and prepare accordingly. Most permanent residents who genuinely live in the United States and travel responsibly will continue to re-enter without serious issues. The rules haven't disappeared, they're just being applied with closer attention. Moving forward with confidence. Travel should not feel like a gamble, and with the right preparation, it doesn't have to be. Being informed empowers you to move confidently rather than anxiously. If your life is rooted in the United States, your actions reflect that, and your documents support it. You are doing exactly what the law expects. Staying grounded, organized, and honest is the best protection you have, not only at the airport, but in your long-term journey as a permanent resident.